Welcome back to the Nintendo 64 Diaries, a limited series here in the year 2026 on the Call Me By Your Game podcast, where I, your host, Connor McCabe, talk to people about my personal favorite console, the Nintendo 64, here in the year of its 30th birthday. If the N64's 30, how old does that make me? I'm not going to tell you, but you can probably figure it out from context clues or just listening to the podcast, which I've been doing for, 7 years. I'm really excited to get into Volume 5 today. We've got an amazing guest that I'm going to introduce in just a second. This is a different version of the show normally. This is a limited series I'll be doing all year long, once a month, talking to a person or different persons about, their experience with the console, but also certain topics that I feel like diving into. And today we're going to get into a little bit of a topic with our guest about how the N64 has lived since its main life cycle. Basically, since the last game came out for that console, how have people interacted with it? How have we played it? In what ways has the heartbeat kept on beating for this console? I'm really excited to talk about that today. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into that is that any links or plugs that my guest or I have today on the show, if you want to, maybe go to someone's sketch show or follow a different podcast other than this one, or even check out our Patreon. You can go ahead and find a link in the show notes wherever you're listening. It'll take you there. So whatever you hear today, if it sounds interesting, go ahead and find it there. That's going to do it for the housekeeping. Let's introduce our guest for today's episode, student, Z-targeter, and producer of this podcast. He was just here like 8 episodes ago. It's Jeremy Schmidt.
Hey, 8 episodes ago. Wow.
I know it feels like maybe months ago that we discussed Super Mario Odyssey, but it's only been, 7 or 8 weeks.
That's kind of wild. It feels like longer ago, but I guess it was only a short while ago. Anyways, good to be back.
Good to have you. With all the podcasting we do, it's really easy for everything to feel like the distant past here. So I'm really happy to have you back here today, Jeremy. Even though you were here recently, is there anything that you want to plug or to say about yourself up top?
I guess, listen to my podcast, Video Games, a Comedy Show, anywhere podcasts can be found. I'm sure you'll plug the Patreon at some point in this episode, but we do a Patreon where we do a Games Club style format podcast, and it's excellent. It's so much fun. I would definitely check that out. I do stuff at the UCB Theater in LA, so you can come watch sketch comedy, go do things there, and that's... we have a big show on the, if you're listening to this, I guess when the episode comes out, that means you're...
It's the same week, I think.
The same week,
yeah.
So in 2 days, the 22nd at the UCB, we have a big sketch show. Or I'm sorry, the 23rd, Saturday. But also, just really glad to be back and talking about the Nintendo 64. I mean, this is, I know you were doing this series on your show, and I've been side-eyeing it, a little jealous this whole... I'm like, I want to get in there. I want to talk about this stuff.
You said something, coming into this year, you had said, you're like, I'm interested in talking about the N64 this year. Maybe I'll do something on my show. And I had a similar desire, and I was like, okay, what way can I make that kind of relevant to Call Me By Your Game? Is there a way? And sure, it turns out it's kind of the same way I do my regular show. I'm just asking everyone about the same shit once a month. That's all it is.
It's a great way in. I love it. Yeah. And I still, This summer, I hope to maybe do some N64 related stuff. I have my analog 3D still always hooked up to my big TV in the living room. So hopefully we can make this an N64 summer on Video Games, a Comedy Show as well too.
If we could just get Chet Hanks to make a front-facing video saying it's an N64 summer, I think we're going to be in business, Jeremy.
Yeah, or Charlie XCX. Declaring Brat Summer over, N64 Summer begins.
I think we got to get them to do some sort of collaboration.
A
duet. Yeah. I think they call it a duet.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to get into this discussion, but to tag on to you bringing up the Patreon a little earlier, you've talked about how, we have our Games Club series that airs at the $5 DJ Toad tier. So if you support us at Super NPC Radio at that tier, basically every single Friday of the year, with a couple exceptions when we're starting up a new program, we have a new episode covering one game in a book club style format. we're rip-roaring through our Batman Arkham Asylum series right now. Once this episode comes out in 2 days, episode 7 of 9 will release. So we're most of the way through it. And 2 things I want to say about that is that A, if you're not sure if you're going to like that series, or if you're like, I'm kind of saving my bones right now, I'm trying to spend it on, I don't know, food and rent.
Boo.
First of all, boo. Second, check out our free feed. The Super NPC Games Club is live wherever you get your podcasts, and our old series, previous series, about a year staggered in the past, air there. And by the time you're listening to this, the entire Control Games Club will be on the free feed. Episode 8 aired yesterday when this comes out. And Jeremy, would you believe that our Resident Evil 4 remake series is about to start leaking there?
Very cool. That is wild. The way
It feels crazy.
The way time moves is so crazy.
Yes, so anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is, Jeremy, this Friday, when people are listening, 2 days from now, our next Games Club election kicks off.
Oh,
And
no!
I think you and I should probably talk a little bit about what that's going to be, because people who support us at any tier, the $2 tier and up, financially on Patreon, they can vote to help decide what fork in the road do we go down. And what you had a great pitch for what to even title this thing. You want to talk about it really quick before I keep rambling?
Yeah, well, so do the patrons already know? Did you guys announce this last week?
We announced it on the Games Club that aired, when you and I are recording this, it airs in 2 days. But
yes, got it.
Unless you're subscribed there and you already listened, you won't know.
Well, this season on the Games Club, we have a head-to-head competition, a 1v1 competition called Of Mice and Mice, which is...
This is my mouse impression.
Just
you like it.
Completely disappeared over the Zoom somehow, but I imagine it was good. So the 2 games that we are pitting against each other is gonna be Mouse PI, 2026's Mouse PI, and 2026's Mina the Hollower. 2 mice games going head to head. Connor's did a gun for one, and then did a shovel for. I think that's because of Shovel Knight. Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Unless Mina uses a shovel, that would be something.
I have seen animations of her burrowing, so good.
Yeah. These are 2 mice games. Mice are hot right now. Mice are in. So we wanted to leave it up to the patrons to decide what mice game we're going to be covering. Mina the Hollower, the new Yacht Club game from the Shovel Knight folks, and then Mouse PI. I don't know if Mouse PI has a legacy, is like part of a legacy studio or anything, but Troy Baker voices the mouse, so that's something about that game.
God, what more could you want?
What more could you want?
And we've been famously avoiding Troy Baker. We've been like, we can't possibly cover a game where he does a voice. I mean, actually, he's probably done one in some of the games we've done. Who knows?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean,
surely.
he's definitely done Death Stranding guy.
Oh, what am I talking about? We did 2 games where he does voice.
Yeah. Definitely done Death Stranding guy.
Yes, he does. He has done Death Stranding guy. But I'm really excited. I'm looking for Mouse PI right now on my wish list on Steam to see if I can find the developer. And of course, it's not there. But yeah, it should be. I'm really excited because both games, Mouse PI for Hire has gotten a great reception so far. It's got a really interesting, cool art style. We haven't done a first-person shooter since the BioShock series a couple years ago. Yeah. But I think, I'll just be honest, I think we're really both hoping to play Mina the Hollower.
I know, we're both. I think this is one election where I don't mind trying to tip the scales in one direction. I really want to play Mina the Hollower. I think we're going to get a nice big full meal out of Mina the Hollower. That being said, I have played the opening hour or 2 of Mouse PI for Hire, and it's great. I am having a good time with it. Wouldn't mind if we had to play that either, but Mina is definitely where my heart belongs.
Same here. We figured let's find something on theme, another mouse focused game, and at least if we end up playing Mouse PI for Hire, it's apparently awesome. So yeah, of course we just wouldn't dream of taking the vote out of the patron's hands. No.
No.
So
will we be a little pissed off at you? Sure, but Mouse PI also, you mentioned BioShock as being our last first-person shooter. Mouse PI shares a lot in common with BioShock, actually, in terms of like structure. So it's like that. That's I guess I don't know why I brought that up.
Well,
cut this.
Okay,
cutting
right now.
Note to self, cut this.
Yeah, Mr. Editor. So for you, if you're out there, if you're already a patron, or if you want to vote in this election, subscribe at the $2 Mailroom Toad tier. That election is going to be going live on Friday, May 22nd at 12 p.m. Pacific time on our Patreon. We'll post it all over social media and in the Discord, and it will wrap up one exact week later on the 29th at 12. So make your voice heard for the Of Mice and Mice election. That's enough of that. Let's get into the 5th entry in the N64 Diaries. Before we get into our big main topic, Jeremy, about how we continue to interact with the console and how it lives today, and has since its, I guess, death, I might say, I want to talk about your history with this system. Now, when did you first start interacting with an N64? What are your earliest memories with the console? Was it playing it, seeing it, ignoring it?
Definitely not ignoring it. I cite the N64 as being the probably, and this is maybe embarrassing as a near 40-year-old man to admit, probably the most excited I've ever been in my life for anything was the N64. And I think that's got to be true. I saw the N64 running at a Target like in 90, like before its launch. I think they had the displays set up. And I don't know if I think I probably ran around as Mario in Mario 64 a little bit, and I just had like hard eyes emoji and needed it so badly. And it's, I'm born in 87, so like my first console is a Super Nintendo, and that's a very special console for me because I didn't know about video games before that console. So it was like that's me discovering that there's a thing called video games.
Yeah.
Period. So that's thrilling. But the N64 was, I already know what video games are, and I'm aware this is coming out, and I'm really excited for it. So
you can anticipate the console.
That's the word, anticipate. So that Christmas, it was new. I don't know what month it came out during the year.
I think it was like, I've been corrected on this series before. I want to say in the U.S. it was August or September of 96.
Great. I wanted it so bad, and I remember my parents, this is actually kind of messed up, but my parents I think they were trying to do a thing where they were trying to like convince me that I wasn't gonna get it for Christmas because they were trying to be like make it a big surprise. And the way that they decided to do this was they told me, a very impressionable like 7-year-old boy or 8-year-old boy, that my dad wasn't gonna get his bonus that year for work. So that we weren't going to have enough money to have like a big Christmas. And I took that on emotionally so hard. And I was like, you got to be a big, strong man. You got to just face this head on. And I was like, it's okay, Dad. Don't even worry about it. And I remember just feeling so stressed out that my parents were like broke or something.
Yes.
So that when I opened the Nintendo 64 on Christmas morning that year, I burst into tears, Connor. I was like, it wasn't even the N64. It's like the stress of my parents being broke just like lifted off my shoulders. I was like, goodness. Oh, thank God they were lying to me.
Oh, so you immediately knew it was all a ruse. I thought for a second you were going to say that you were like, what have you done? Why would you do something so irresponsible? No. I don't need this.
No, I figured out that it was a ruse at that point.
That's for the best.
Yeah. And so crazy that they would do that. But I remember opening it up, and I didn't have any games for it. Games were very expensive for the Nintendo 64. So we went to Blockbuster, good old Blockbuster, and rented both Mario 64 and Pilot Wings 64.
Cool.
Which I think were the only two games. Maybe Wave Race and some others had come out.
By that point, probably a few, but
You're right,
it was slim pickings.
It launched with only the two games, but I think by that, probably by Christmas, there was more out for it. And and I just played it just like nonstop, like that Christmas, and it became my main console for a few years. I think a few years later, I would get a PlayStation, and that would sort of take over. That's a very strange time, I think, like it to be 9 years old, kind of approaching middle school. Like you're at least in the 90s, around that time, I think a lot of kids my age wanted something more adult by the time they were getting into middle school. So the PlayStation ends up becoming like the main console that I would play the most that generation. But the N64,
you start cheating on Mario with Cloud.
Yes, that's sort of how it felt. But there were games that would constantly come out for that thing that I would check in on, and yeah, it's great. And to this day, it's not my favorite console, but it's up there. It's up there with my most nostalgic, probably my most my best memories, maybe. Having 4 controller ports was sort of kept that thing really relevant. Even into the PlayStation 2 era, I remember we would still have Smash Brothers.
Yes.
There was just nothing that could beat Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, and quite frankly, Perfect Dark and GoldenEye. Those were like slumber party go-tos, even a generation later. So,
yes.
But pre-Halo, Halo would maybe
dethrone that a little bit.
Yeah.
You're already sort of getting into some territory I was hoping to ask you about, which was, how your journey continued with the console before the PlayStation dethroned it and maybe took that top spot for you. Are there other significant experiences that you remember having with different games? For sure. And maybe like that era specific, if you can think of any.
The beginning era.
Yeah, or like before, basically the first
before Ocarina of Time.
No, that's Ocarina's great too. I'm more so asking about just like your childhood with it, not like present day stuff as much.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Well, like I mentioned before, it was the console that we would play during sleepovers. Like the PlayStation couldn't accommodate a big, massive group hangout in the same way. So we would end up playing a lot of like Wave Race 64, Mario Kart 64. We'd Pod Racers. We'd rent all of these great multiplayer games and play those constantly, like well into the 2000s. I think. Now, but before that, I just remember playing one specific game. I guess I'd like to shout out Shadows of the Empire. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire was a huge deal. The Super Nintendo didn't really have Star Wars games that I felt they were too hard or something. I didn't really enjoy the Star Wars games that were the Super Star Wars.
I've
Empire
touched those games. They are brutal.
They're brutal, and they're like. And they do this thing that I don't like from that generation where every level's like a different kind of game.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like licensed games did that a lot, where it'd be like, this one's a run and gun, and this level is just a platformer, and then this level is a side. So Shadows of the Empire was sort of a revelation. That opening level in Hoth where you have to destroy the ATSTs and stuff. It's like really... I just remember that feeling like I was in Star Wars, like graphics aren't going to get any better than this. Just had a great, like that. Yeah, that game just feels very significant to me.
Cool.
the story around Shadows of the Empire was so cool. It was like, oh, this is like a story. We never seen this part of the Star Wars trilogy. Oh my God. And like Boba Fett's in this thing. Like it just felt, and when you go back to it now, it's just really fascinating because that game is sort of, in its own way, impenetrable and difficult, and the level designs are insane. And like, how did we get through that as kids? But I think we just, I just had this energy as a kid and this hunger to see more and more of the game, and that was definitely a high point, especially early on. Wow. I would say Wave Race as well too. Wave Race was a big deal. Shout out to Digital Foundry. I don't know if you ever check out their stuff, Digital Foundry.
Sure.
They just did like a pretty significant episode on like water racing type games, and they cite Wave Race 64 as being like probably the best water has actually ever looked in a video game to this day. Even like water is so hard to do apparently in game design and in game development, and Wave Race 64, the way that they were able to code the water to move and react is just very I think holds up to this day even more than games like Hydro Thunder, and the whole PS3 generation struggled with water, and so yeah, that's another game I would shout out.
Nice, great, yeah. I Star Wars specifically, to go back a little bit to Shadows of the Empire, has been coming up on the podcast a little bit recently.
Oh, cool.
Like my last guest, Ezra Parter, was talking about how he read like every Star Wars book he could get his hands on as a kid, and would play the games he could also get his hand on, even in the sort of extended universe. And while I missed Shadows of the Empire, I do remember seeing an image of it on the box that I had on my N64 and wondering what that was.
Yeah. Famously, the N64 box itself had like a stormtrooper on it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember looking at that box. I would just stare at that box for a long time too. Just that's how in love with this thing I was.
Yep. I would go on to do the same with the GameCube box. It still has a couple games on it that never came out.
Yeah.
Like the Donkey Kong racing game that was supposed to release, and at least one other. But
it's funny you mentioned GameCube. So sorry, but like the N64 and GameCube, both sort of soft launching with Star Wars, big kind of Star Wars games, is like a really interesting thing. It's like Star Wars and Nintendo kind of had worked together pretty closely back then.
Yes. Yeah, it's Star Wars Rogue Squadron to Rogue Leader is still kind of a technical marvel on the GameCube. I booted it up recently, and I couldn't get through the opening Death Star level. I kept dying. But I did, on the subject of the N64, Jeremy, just for fun, after I played through Pokemon Snap recently, just to ran through the whole game on the cart that I have.
Awesome.
But the original Rogue Squadron, have you ever dipped into that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've had that since I was a kid. I could never get past the level, I think it's the 4th level, where you have to take out the AT-ATs with the tow cables. I never knew how to do it as a kid. And as an adult, I'm like, well, I'll just press every button until it finally works. And it did release, and now I'm like 8 levels through that game and loving it. I mean, it's not perfect, it's not amazing, but for the way that it sort of stands in its own time is still fun to play a mission-based space shooter.
It's you bring up something that I think is actually pretty relevant, and that's the idea of like games, like how well do things hold up on the N64?
Yes.
Like going back to games now and looking at them, I feel like in the mid-aughts, maybe actually in the 20-teens as well. Like I remember like when I was in college, essentially, when I was in undergrad, the N64 having a bit of a nostalgia revival even back then, and people really like wanting to get together and play an N64 games. I think what had happened was that people went to undergrad and stopped playing video games, and at some point woke up and remembered, oh, we can do this. We can still play. We can do that with beer in our hands. And people really hungering for the N64 in a way that, like, I don't remember people some people wanted to play Melee, but no one wanted to bring out like a Super Nintendo necessarily.
Yes.
People were wanting to play party games on the N64 during undergrad, and even when the 360 and stuff was available and
Yes.
out. And I think that's a testament to like how like strong the nostalgic feeling towards that console is, sort of writ large, with millennials, with the people who experienced it when it came out, that they sort of, it's almost like we can't see a lot of the things that maybe
Yes.
Gen Z and younger generations see when they turn on those games.
We were wearing rose-colored glasses, Jeremy.
And it's like we can't take them off. Like,
Yes.
I mean, I can kind of understand that, oh yeah, these polygons look very rudimentary or whatever, and like maybe the gameplay isn't as good as games you get today. But when I'm playing Star Fox 64, it's like you can't convince me that game isn't perfect.
Yes.
You know? So
Yeah, there are certain experiences like that too that are just kind of transcendent, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Maybe it's that I'm just kind of hypothesizing here, or theorizing rather, that we saw this thing show up in our lives when we didn't really have home console 3D gaming in a big way. Or it was doing things that even the PlayStation wasn't able to do, but it had its own drawbacks. But because of that, and because we grew up with it, it's in our bones. So maybe that has something to do with it. But I still feel like I'll see, some child on Reddit post like, oh my gosh, I just got into the N64, or I'm playing Ocarina for the first time, or Diddy Kong Racing is new to me, but wow, it's so cool. So I think people can still develop a new appreciation for it, but not to the degree that we're probably always going to have.
Yeah, and that's really cool to see when if you get on Steam and you look at a lot of indie game development, how for a long time everyone was targeting sprite-based games. People have started to target that like early polygon 32-bit, 64-bit system look, and I think that that's like really fun and cool and interesting, and it's sort of, I don't know, it sort of reframes that whole generation as like, instead of just ugly, we consider it, we can like see it as something else, and we see it as sort of that there are sort of, I don't know, there are cool things about it that are
absolutely.
Yeah.
There are like gameplay and graphical leaps that the console took that are still, maybe they're harder to pinpoint nowadays if you didn't experience them at the time, but that were still crucial and really important in, I guess, just the development of the medium in general. So it's still, you might find a turd every so often when you're looking back at the console, but you'll also find plenty of greatness too. Speaking of which, I want to kind of like usher us into our main topic today, which is just us discussing how the console lives to this day and has lived since then. There's been many ways that people have interacted with the N64, in the last 30 years. And I understand that not everyone has had like quite the sickness that maybe I have, where I still to this day have my original console. It is the only console that I didn't unload my library at a certain point to buy games or a console from a different library. So I still have all of my original games, and I would occasionally add through the years. So while I've been someone who's had the privilege to literally plug the console into a TV and play it for every single one of the last 28 years since I got it, that's not how everyone has interacted with it. And it's also not the only way I've interacted with it. Jeremy, you're someone who has, I wanted to talk to you about this specifically because you are someone who I know has interacted with this library, this console, in so many different ways.
Yeah.
When you think about, I kind of want to start maybe in some of the first ways that we interacted with it that weren't just on the console.
Sure.
Did you ever get into the Wii Virtual Console where you could which was the first time we were able to purchase N64 games off of the system?
Yeah. I definitely think this predates emulation, at least for me. So I was playing at least Mario Kart 64 on my Wii. I think that was the only N64 game that I purchased on the Wii, but I was a late Wii adopter. Like I got a Wii like in 2000, I don't know, 12 or 13.
Oh, wow.
It was like it was a while into its life cycle. And I didn't actually buy a lot of eShop games for that. I think I had the original Legend of Zelda for the NES and Mario Kart 64. And we did play a fair amount of Mario Kart 64 on that thing, but when I look back at what the Wii had, like Sin and Punishment, I think is first made available there.
Yes.
It had Donkey Kong 64 for purchase on there, which is crazy. I like kind of am like, oh man, I mean, it's hard to go back and like force yourself to like want to play old N64 games, but I kind of wish I had, because they offered so much there. And when I would later hack a Wii, I would sort of load on there some of the N64 stuff that was that I would wanted to play. Although I do think that the Wii, definitely the Wii U, but I think also the Wii might have struggled a little bit with those N64 games. I'm not quite sure.
I believe so. It wasn't quite seamless with every title, as far as I can remember. Because kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, I bought a ton of N64 games on the Virtual Console. I was loading up my store wallet with money to buy Virtual Console games. And I think at the launch of the Wii, that service was already available. And the first kind of appropriately, one of the first games available was Super Mario 64.
Cool.
So I had a copy of that game, both of the N64 Zeldas, Pokemon Snap. There were others that I'm sure I had as well, and then some that never became available. But for a while, for me, that was like the way I would interact with the N64, even though I still had the console. It was easier to just turn on the console I was already using and plug in a classic controller to a Wiimote and play.
Yeah. Okay, so you would play through a classic controller. Is this right?
You had to do that or use like a GameCube controller that plugged into the system. There was no way to... It wouldn't function if you tried to just use a Wiimote and a nunchuck.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of... Yeah, okay, so GameCube controller, and then are the C buttons mapped to the C stick?
They're mapped to both the C stick, and like two of them would be mapped to X and Y.
Okay.
Yes, so kind of a funky workaround for that, but the classic controller, for whatever reason, it just looks like, I don't know, like a more clinical version of the Super Nintendo. You've probably seen it, or do you have one?
I don't have one, but I've seen it, and it plugs into the bottom of a Wiimote. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have like a Wiimote sitting next to you, and the classic controller just plugged right into it. I honestly, for the longest time, that was like my most used controller on the system.
Yeah.
Because I was playing, you could also use it with some Wii games that allowed for it, like the Smash Bros. Brawl and what have you.
Okay. That's good.
But I used it, the Wii Virtual Console so much for that. I eventually would transfer my Wii's memory over to the Wii U, which also had the same, maybe not the exact same storefront. In fact, a more robust storefront, but that continued to be a way that I interacted with the N64. That's like one example I wanted to bring up.
That's really cool. I never owned the classic controller for the Wii, but we must have been playing through GameCube controllers, because I think, because we were also big into Smash Brawl when I got that console, and we played that through GameCube controllers as well.
Yes.
So
I've got more examples that I'm happy to share as we go through this, but I kind of wanted to open it up to you. Is there another way that maybe we haven't discussed yet that you've interacted with the console throughout the years that you want to bring up?
Oh, I mean, hundreds of ways. I mean, maybe not hundreds of ways, but a few different ways. Yeah. I mean, when I made my triumphant return to video game playing back in, I don't know, 2012 or whatever, whenever I got that Wii, that was really like when I'm coming back into games. And I don't know if I didn't take a significant break since then. So I've been kind of, playing video games more or less throughout, for the last, decade and a half. But I got really big into emulation. Emulation was a thing that a little broke boy like myself could like use to play, especially like lots of older games that I had never discovered. NES, Master System, Genesis, Super Nintendo, all of those emulators, by the time I'm starting to futz with emulation, are really rock solid, and there's not a lot you can't play on those. But N64, because of its architecture, from what I understand, has a very hard time emulating, or at least it did for a very long time. So N64 emulation was not always rock solid.
It had a lot of issues. I feel like, is what I heard for years.
Lots of issues, lots of depending on how you were running it or through what hardware you were running it, like what kind of a computer, it could have like a lot of slowdown. It could also have a lot of like textures not populating in the world of. There were certain games that were just completely fixed from the jump, like Ocarina of Time and Mario 64 were like. You could always play games like that, but those weren't the games that you wanted to play through emulators, because you wanted to play games that you couldn't get your hands on before, or you missed when you were when the console was popular. So like Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo 2, I remember those two really struggled in emulation. Yeah. So it's like hard to like they certain textures wouldn't load in, certain characters wouldn't load in. Donkey Kong 64 was another one that had like a lot of problems. A lot of the rare games, the bigger 3D platformers, but they always, when you could get them to work well, sometimes they would run at a super high frame rate, like, or at least a locked like 30 FPS, and they would load in at like in like 1080p or 4K polygons, which was insane to look at. You would see Ocarina of Time in suddenly a whole new light, and it did two things. One, it in some cases it made the games look a lot better or a lot cleaner, so you could kind of make out what was going on. But in some cases, it would make things look horrendous because it was exposing things that the N64 was hiding using
almost like workarounds that the designers would use. Like I'm thinking of Ocarina of Time specifically, and they did such a masterful job, especially on the N64 when you're originally playing it on a CRT television. That is masking so many of the tricks that they're pulling. Like using these pointy 3D models juxtaposed against the background of essentially what are textures.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of what we'd see on like it's similar to what tricks they'd pull in Final Fantasy VII, but like what you're saying,
interesting. Yeah,
playing that through emulation or at a higher resolution, it would expose some of those tricks, I guess.
Well, yeah, like you're pointing out, there would be, like, for example, in the horizon of Ocarina of Time, you would see, if you're playing on a CRT, like the proper way through a component cable, it looks like fog and then like trees behind the fog. It has a very seamless look. When you put it through emulation, that fog disappears and those trees are JPEGs, turns out. And the JPEGs are so low resolution that suddenly they don't look like trees at all. It just looks like mush. So in some cases, you would put this in an emulator and you could see now for the first time what they were going for, and then in other cases you wouldn't be able to tell what they were going for at all because the JPEGery would be so mushy and gross. So I was obsessed with emulation for a stretch. Even when we were starting the podcasts, I was collecting ROM databases and putting them on hard drives, like as if I don't know what I was gonna what am I doing with that? I don't know.
Yes,
my way of game preservation or something. It's
what if everything else explodes and I have the only copies?
100%. It's like, why do I need all this?
Space Station Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it was like borderline like OCD behavior of just like trying to get everything I could, more than I could ever play or would ever want to play. But it was a lot of fun to experiment with that stuff, and then trying to find ways to load that onto satellite devices, and then playing them on my TV. That was like always the goal, is that I would have a station set up or a computer that I could run an HDMI into, and then just play the library of N64 stuff or Sega Saturn stuff or PlayStation stuff. And and then certain devices kind of got you close to that, really none for the N64, unfortunately, but like the PlayStation Mini was like a way that you could play PlayStation games hacked on a TV and stuff. But yeah, the N64 continued still, even after we started our podcast, to be a enigmatic, hard to emulate, hard to also like. You could do a RetroPie, I suppose. Later, there would be like the Mister and like the FPGA cores and stuff that you could use to play through that. But I would say the next way that you might have done it is through the Wii U. Is that another? Have we talked about that at all yet? Do you want to talk about that?
Please, yes, of course.
The Wii U was interesting because it continued that tradition of the Wii like selling N64 games like officially.
Through the storefront.
So you could buy them in an official capacity from Nintendo. And I think a lot of people were under the impression that this was like an elevated way to play N64 games. It was definitely now coming out of an HDMI cable, so 1080p, it'd be like upscaled or whatever. But when you look back at that emulation process, it was very it was extremly flawed, and there was like a lot of slowdown with those, and there was a dimming situation. That being said, though, I bought more N64 games on the Wii U than I did the Wii.
Okay.
And played through. I think I played a significant amount of like Majora's Mask on the Wii U before I kind of stopped. And I do remember like enjoying being able to take it to bed with me and like use just the Wii U
the gamepad.
To play some of those N64 games. But if you look at side by sides, I think of them now, like Majora's Mask specifically is a game where like they if you play them side by side, you can see the Wii U version is significantly slower. Like it won't catch up to the even the Wii version of the game. So it's like, it's very funny because it's like, what was a 5 or 6 minute introduction ends up being like a 8 to 10 minute introduction. It's not the end of the world. If you're playing these games, you might not even notice that while you're playing, but it's sort of hard to put the toothpaste back in the bottle once you see it.
It is. This is making me wonder, have we ever had a console that has had probably such varied experience for a title depending on where you've played it? Like, what you experienced on the N64 originally with Majora's Mask versus the 3DS remake versus the Wii U software port versus, I don't know, someone playing it on an analog 3D with like stuff overclocked somehow.
Yeah.
It's just such a range of ways to play these games that, if you're playing them in a vacuum, you might not notice, but side by side, it's hard not to see the difference.
The best way to play N64 games for a long time ended up being sort of a through an original N64. That was the sort of the definitive canonized way that you would play these games. I mean, a lot of people say that that's true for every console. It's like the best way to do it is through the original hardware, and I think that's kind of probably true in most cases. I got an EverDrive cartridge that basically played ROMs through an original N64. So the N64 is thinking it's a new cart. It's the cart, and playing it as the N64 would play it. I remember getting an S video cable to an HDMI cable, so it was like the best possible output onto an HD screen, and it looked kind of muddy, but I played all of Donkey Kong 64 that way when we did it for the Games Club. Like, yes. I had a great time for those years I was doing that. But then, eventually Analog did come out with the Analog 3D, and I do think that is now the definitive and best possible way that you can play these games, because it's simulating actual hardware. You can do things to it visually and on a system level that makes the games run and look better, and you just have more customization options.
Yes.
It is sort of unbelievable that you can play an N64 game in 4K, but with the fog and the shaders and the texture mapping that does simulate an N64. A lot of people were shocked when they saw the Analog 3D, the visuals for it, because they were like, but this doesn't look like HD and clean to my eyes. Like they were surprised that it didn't look more like the NSO N64 games, which look very crisp, and all the lines look perfect. And it's because the Analog 3D isn't emulating software and upscaling that to 4K. It's upscaling the Nintendo 64 as is to 4K displays.
Yes.
So the difference there being, this thing is going to retain a lot of the charm and looks and aesthetics of the original N64. It's not going to change it to make it look like, I don't know, like up to 2026 HD standards.
Sure.
It's a really interesting dilemma, because it's almost like what people do prefer is the muddy look. It's sort of the charm of it. And when you take that away, it loses something. As we saw with the NSO Zeldas, people were like, this looks terrible.
Especially on first release.
Yeah.
I remember hearing you and I think it was Tyler Schnupp discuss on an old episode of VGACS, like, your sort of reaction to finally having access to some of those games on NSO, and how flawed they were, and how I think Nintendo has done a lot to improve that experience.
I think so.
There, but it just goes to show that emulating them that system is not easy. Have you had a good time or done much dabbling with your Analog 3D and played with any of the unique settings? It's a subject we've talked about before on this show with, like, specifically Grant and Jacques, but I'd love to hear if you've done any of that.
Yeah, I have played through a ton of stuff on my Analog 3D and continue to dabble. It's kind of a go-to, I got a little weed in me, I got a little booze in me, like, go-to console to pull out, because I can turn it on in a very unserious way and sort of just, like, fly through a bunch of games and, like, look at a bunch of stuff. It did take me about, I don't know, a couple of weeks of experimenting to really find the right look that I wanted to display at, which ends up being sort of, I do have a CRT filter on because the Analog 3D has a particularly good CRT filter, and I have found that it does hurt my eyes less.
Oh, interesting.
Like, if I have that thing turned off and I'm just looking at crisp, hard pixels or crisp lines, it will kind of hurt my eyes after a while. Like, it's just, it's because it's too bleedy into each other and too much. Something about it. The CRT filter really does make that thing look like suddenly the 3D models stand out from the backgrounds a lot better. There are things about it that just, I think, look a lot better and easier to process, especially when you're, like, say, playing a racing game like Cruisin' USA. You have things flying at you at, like, such a high frame rate, and it's like, the more like diluted you can kind of make it look, the more like CRT filter you can make it look, sort of the easier it is on your eyes.
Sure.
But I played through all of Majora's Mask, all of Banjo-Tooie on that thing.
Oh, you saw it? You ended up seeing it through?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
big
goodness.
time. These were games that I didn't ever play on original hardware. So they were like later N64 titles that I wanted to try out, and I still have a bunch more to go. I plan on playing a lot more of that console, especially this summer, because it does look so freaking nice. And 8BitDo has put out these incredible controllers that feel like modern controllers, but they're wireless and they have all the button layouts of an N64. And yeah, I once I got the look and feel of that right, it's now a situation where I can just turn it on and anything I play just looks perfect. Looks like the way that I've dialed it in.
That's fantastic. I've been, in my limited time getting to dabble on other people's analog 3D systems, I've been so impressed at the features that that thing offers you. And that coupled with like EverDrives or ROM hacks that people have made of original games are so amazing. I've talked a bunch on this series about how my mind is just blown by Smash Remix. What that game... how creative people have been with that game. So it's like not only is the system itself and original software able to live on through multiple avenues of NSO today, emulation, and also people playing original or emulated versions of these games through the analog 3D is so cool. I almost am tempted to at some point try to get one, Jeremy, just as a contingency plan for when my little girl over there kicks the bucket as I look over at my N64 with a copy of Smash Brothers in it.
You can always look at it too as obviously money is an issue, so it's like what to spend your money on. It's not like we have unlimited funds to just purchase stuff, but you can always look at it as as not a replacement, but like another thing to have and dabble with.
And not just a transition dog or system, excuse me.
Yeah.
It's something that will last will be like to continue my enjoyment of the system and all these carts that I have for years to come.
Yeah. Because I think at the end of I think there is probably a way to convert your analog 3D back out to component into a CRT TV, but the definitive way to play N64 or like the purest maybe way to play it is a regular N64 with component cables out into a CRT TV, which you have and you're doing already. So I think it's like, with all of the slowdown and the problems that come with that, it is still like the way that it would have worked in 96 through 2001. I think having an analog 3D is just like, do you want to fuck around with that or not? It's sort of like having an analog pocket, but still also playing your GBA every now and then.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because we still don't forget about those other little consoles, even if we've got these awesome systems. One more subject I wanted to tackle before we go is the one other way that the N64 has continued to live on, and it happens to be extremely relevant this year, and that is ports and remakes. But I am kind of thinking of remakes specifically. We've seen throughout the years that it's almost exclusively like a few of Nintendo's very premier titles from the system that have gotten this treatment. We're talking about, I think the first example I can ever give, the first port example was the Zelda Collector's Edition for the GameCube, which featured two NES games, but also Ocarina and Majora. Famously, I think these are like, people consider them to be like the worst ways to play the games. They have problems as well. I can't tell you specifically what those are, but have you ever happened to dabble with those versions? I had the disc growing up, but eventually sold it.
Yeah. I, when looking for a way to play like Ocarina or Majora's Mask, like when I hacked my Wii, I remember like loading the GameCube version of the disc on there and messing with that, and then I ended up reading something where it was like, yeah, this is actually the worst way to play it. So then I like moved back to the Wii U and played it that way. But yeah, I used to own that disc.
Oh, you as well.
And then I sold it.
Same here, man. I don't know what I was doing, but I got rid of it. Something else I almost got my hands on as a kid, which I got screwed over by Target. I probably told you the story before. When you pre-ordered Wind Waker back in the day, you were supposed to get a copy of the The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time Master Quest disc for the GameCube. When I went to pick up my copy of the game, they told me that they gave it away to somebody else, or I assume an employee took the copy. And
they just remorselessly told you this?
Yes. It was supposed to be a pre-order bonus, but that's another way people could have interacted with the system, a port of an N64 game. I have other examples. We don't have to go through everyone that come to mind, but like Super Mario 64 DS. Like that. Yeah. Basically a full kind of remake of Super Mario 64 is one prime example. We have the Zelda remakes on the 3DS, which I'm playing Ocarina of Time 3D right now.
You are?
I've just been when I feel like it, I'll just chip away.
With the Ocarina of Time remake maybe on the horizon, you're playing.
Yes.
That. Wow.
And really all of this gets us to the elephant in the room, which are two big rumors we've had this year that we've learned about what one of them was, we think, and there's another to come. Within the last week, Nintendo dropped a direct with 10 minutes of warning about Star Fox, and turns out that they've remade Star Fox 64 again. Yeah. It's coming out in June, and it's titled Star Fox.
This is okay. So I've done an episode of Video Games, a Comedy Show since this announcement, but we didn't talk about it at all. So I actually have not talked about this with anyone.
I haven't either. I've just been watching people's comments on our Discord.
Yeah. What is your... are you ready? Or do you feel emotionally ready to give a take on this?
Almost no, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'll say, my initial reaction, seeing that there's a Star Fox Direct, got very excited. I'm kind of echoing a lot of what Patrick expressed on his show this week, Patrick Ellers, the last guest on this program, where I was definitely disappointed at first glance. Seeing that it was just a remake of 64, I really, still honestly don't really like the designs of the characters. Specifically, I think I can't believe what they've done to Fox. Someone
they massacred my boy.
I forget, I think it was maybe actually Grant Moore who's been on the show, or someone else on Discord who said, I can't believe they made Fox unfuckable, which I totally understand. He is a lot less handsome. That being said, I'm mildly excited for this. It's also a budget title. It's I think $50 digitally, $60 physical, this weird new thing that Nintendo's doing with their games. But there are new features to it that they're adding. I don't know, Jeremy. I'm kind of excited, but I'll be honest, I haven't been buying new games really this year, except Resident Evil Requiem was the last one I got.
Oh.
I assume this is a day one for you. Am I wrong?
Oh, no. This will be a day one.
Awesome. And what are you excited? What are you thinking?
I feel the same as I feel the same as I think most people in our circle feel about it, which is I was so disappointed that this is a remake of 64. I still haven't been able to process it. I'm like, why would you do that? They've remade 64, and 64 is kind of a remake of the first game. So it's it's they've remade the same Star Fox game. I think this is the 5th time. Yeah. Let's see. Star Fox 64, Star Fox 64 3D, Star Fox Zero, and this game. Yeah, so this is the 5th time we're doing the same progression. The designs, I could probably get used to the designs of the characters. We'll see. I want to see them in motion more. I want to see these cutscenes more. I kind of like the idea of making Fox unfuckable. Actually does appeal to me.
That's great.
I actually like the idea that they look a little bad or something, or or like gross animals, or in theory, when I see them with my eyes, though, I am a little like, Slippy is way too wet, and like there's like stuff like that. But other than that, I do think the graphics look good outside of the character models. I'm really happy with specifically the water. I like the way the water looks.
There he is.
I like the ships. I like the attempt at like an HDR feel to it, where it looks very like, HDR-y.
Like
high dynamic rangey,
kind of, but with a little bit of more of an artistic take. Yeah,
I like that, and I'm gonna play the hell out of it, and I'm gonna play it all of the routes because I know them all by heart, and it'd be fun if this had a really great working multiplayer. It makes me kind of want to get that camera.
I think it does, and it's got new multiplayer modes.
Yeah, I think that camera could be fun in this with game chat, and all of our faces are the different animals or whatever.
I call Pigma.
Yeah. But I think so. I'm mixed, I guess, just overall on it. But I will say, in terms of Nintendo 64 remakes, that 3DS game, that 3DS Star Fox game, and those 3DS Zelda games are like pretty freaking incredible. The DS really efforts to remake 64 stuff was not as good. Obviously, the Super Mario 64 DS not as good, and Diddy Kong Racing DS not as not as good. Serviceable maybe, but like not. It would be if you were to play those today, it would be for science.
Yes. I'm just falling in a similar camp to you as far as like kind of a mixed reaction. I would say more excited than not for Star Fox, as they're calling it, for the Switch too. But I think part of that is because of and this is echoing another thing that Patrick was expressing, which I think is totally colored my expectations, which is once this rumor started to swirl from Nate the Hate that there was a new Star Fox game coming this year, probably this summer, and that there's an Ocarina of Time 3D remake coming at the end of the year at some point. Suddenly, I'm not just hoping, but kind of expecting for a new Star Fox game to show up, and to have what showed up be a remake of 64 was different than my expectations and a little confusing, because now I'm wondering, will they be doing two N64 remakes in the same year for the Switch 2? Yeah. I would be surprised, but I guess there's no better year to do it than here in the 30th anniversary of the console, I guess. Yeah,
and as we mentioned, the last time they did a straight remake of both of these games was on the 3DS, and so it does feel like there's a tradition of remaking these specific games or bringing them forward. And yeah, I do think that they are gonna probably remake both of them this year, and I think that they're probably gonna make Ocarina of Time 2 games. That's another thing that people are thinking. And like as soon as someone said that, I was like, yeah, I mean, like now I've learned to like I hope they don't, but I've learned to almost expect the worst possible case for something that I would otherwise be pretty stoked about.
It's like you get what you want, but monkey's paw does curl.
Yeah. And so if they end up doing Ocarina of Time split into two, that'll bum me out. But I could see them doing that. How would that make you feel?
I think I would also be bummed out. I want that game to remain one package. I don't think that it has quite the volume of content to make two games like Final Fantasy VII does to make three titles. I really don't think that it does. So I think it would be a mistake, and I hope it doesn't happen, but that might just be because I don't like the idea. So I think there are ways that they could expand the game that I haven't really discussed too much, that are things they could blow out in that game, in that world, that would be very fun and satisfying. One question I've posed before, Jeremy, is I want to know and see what Sheik is up to while Link is doing his stuff, or what Zelda was doing all of those years while Link is frozen in time. Like, could there be something to that? I'm kind of a little doubtful that there might be two playable characters in a Zelda game, but I just wonder what they could do there.
I am with you, actually, on this. I do want them to make me play a little Sheik section. Like, I want to play a little Zelda section. I want them to fuck up Ocarina of Time in a way that, like, people are, like, angry about.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to go kind of nuts with Ocarina of Time. In the same way that I would have wanted them to go kind of nuts with, like, even if they were to remake Star Fox 64 as they're doing, like, what if they added a ton more levels and a new elements to the story? Like whenever we saw in that Star Fox preview, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. Whenever they showed that James McCloud cutscene for Star Fox, like, that's the kind of direction that I was like, oh yeah, what if we had to play all these missions as James McCloud and like a whole prologue and epilogue section? Like if you're gonna remake something, I like the Resident Evil 2 remake and Final Fantasy 7 remake ethos in remakes, where it's like, this is a different game. Like, you can always play those originals. But we're calling it a remake. It's the same story and sort of vibe, but it's like a different game with different mechanics, and it's going to be a whole different kind of fun, so that it doesn't feel like a straight replacement or like the attempt at a replacement. Like Star Fox 64 remaking it just 1-to-1 with better graphics does feel like a replacement. It does feel like, well, why would I play the N64 game if this is exactly the same? Mechanically, it just looks better, and I don't like that, because to me that's kind of silly. Why not really, like, get creative? Yeah.
Yes. I think that's a great point. And I'm always kind of hoping for, even if I can't always articulate that, I think in my heart I'm always hoping for something similar too with a remake.
Yeah.
To sort of, there's not really a way that I have to wrap up this conversation other than I love that there are so many ways that the N64 continues to live in our day-to-day lives, and that has lived over the last 30 years. All these ways that we've discussed today that we've, like, either struggled to find or had very easy access to interacting with the system. It's great. And who knows what else we'll have on the horizon for that, but still some stuff to look forward to later this year.
It makes you, whenever a console I feel like is hard to emulate or hard to port up, it makes you kind of that much more hungry or like thirsty for it. You're like, oh, now I have, like, the N64 was kind of a white whale, so, like, it made you sort of, like, want it in a way that where you were like, oh, Super Nintendo, I could just play that anytime, whatever, I don't give a shit now. But if it had been Switch and that was harder, then we'd maybe be pining for the Super Nintendo more. You know what I mean? I think there's something about its inaccessibility.
Yes.
That made it a little juicy.
It doesn't know it's playing hard to get, but it is.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, this has been so much fun chatting with you. Is there anything else you want to say about this main topic we've been discussing, or just your relationship with the N64 on the way out?
No. I think, it's a testament to Nintendo's sort of, like, legacy and ability to like stand up against, other giants like Sony and Sega, that they made a console. They kind of fucked up with it. They kind of made another cartridge-based console in an era where discs were king. They couldn't do the kind of cool FMV stuff and music stuff that was going on the Sega Saturn or PlayStation, but they still made at least two of the best games ever made for it. So, there you go. It's that Nintendo ingenuity through and through that we see on the N64. It's that hey, like, you can never quite like overtake us in terms of, like, creativity. Mm-hmm. That's something that I think the N64 shows us about Nintendo, and it remains true to this day. They've not since the GameCube really had a hardware contender out there on the market, but they've always racked in the dough from creativity. And I think it's an interesting lesson to learn in the year 2026.
It is, isn't it? Well, Jeremy, lovely hearing from you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on a volume of the N64 Diaries and pen your own entry, my friend. This was awesome having you. I know you plugged some stuff up top, but do you want to plug anything on your way out?
I'm good, pal.
All right. Well, one thing that I'll plug for the two of us is that if you like the N64 and you like a little game called Banjo-Kazooie, Jeremy and I recently did a whole overview 2-hour episode about that game. The four portsmen got together, me, Jeremy, July Diaz, and Michael McCaller, and you can listen to that one of two ways. If you're already a $10 Engineer Toad supporter on our Patreon, that episode's available for you, but you can listen to it for free on the Call Me By Your Game YouTube channel as well. It always comes out a week later. So if you're looking for an overview on an absolutely fantastic 3D platformer from the system, follow us on YouTube. It's easy to find. There's a link in the show notes. As far as the other plugs, I'll go ahead and do those now. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. You can find his Instagram in a link in the show notes. This show is produced, edited, and the original music that you hear to open and close this thing is done by this little guy here, Jeremy Schmidt.
Woo!
What great work he does. You can follow me, Connor, on Blue Sky and Twitch if you'd like to. You can also follow the podcast on YouTube, as I've already said, on Blue Sky and Instagram as well. And last but not least, consider checking us out on Patreon. We're over at patreon.com/super NPC Radio. And that's a place where, if you're looking for a way to support the show, I would say share the podcast with a friend or check out what we offer over on Patreon to find a tier that works for you if you want to support us financially and get bonuses for that. But that's going to do it for another edition of the Nintendo 64 Diaries. We will see you on the next one.